creating the submarine movement and death logic. Okay, so this is going to be probably one of the longest chapters, mainly because it includes a lot of different elements to it. So we're going to be adding a submarine from anything web browser. That's pretty straightforward and pretty simple. But we also want to add some logic. So whenever the submarine hits the rocks or any sort of obstacles that are in the way, it has a death logic and also a death animation. I'm going to use particle systems for the death animation, and I'm going to just do a simple explosion. But how those states are changed and how everything is affected is dependent on box colliders, and we're going to use a box collider and a capsule collider to detect the whether or not the submarine has hit the rocks. So right now I'm just rescaling and positioning the submarine. I also want to add a path for the submarine to follow as well. If you've ever used Sebastian Lake's path tool in the asset store, it's free. Then you would know how to use the tool that I'm going to use next. So that's pretty much a component that I'm going to add is a path follow, or sorry, a path. I'm going to create an empty and call it a path. And what this is going to do is just going to have the component of adding a path from that Sebastian Lake package that you can get on the asset store for free. So path follower, and it creates a Bezier curve based path. So I don't want it just to be paths, not path follower. Path follower is actually going to be added to the submarine. So yeah, you can see now you can get this Bezier curve, and you can just decide what level or what height you want this path to be on, and also what shape you want it to have. So using the points on either end, you can move these points to decide the shape, and you can also move the handles as well to decide how flat or how curved these points are. So it's a very simple tool to create paths, and it's going to be very useful for this part of the game. It's just creating a simple movement of the submarine, or a controlled movement that we know exactly where the submarine is going to go. If you want to add an extra point, you can shift and left click on the path, and then just change the shape of the path again as well. So I'm just adding a curve so the submarine can go around the corner once it's gone through through and past those rocks. So just tweaking the path right now. This is also super useful for stuff like if you want to make games like racing games or have some sort of AI movement. What I'm doing right now is I'm just tweaking the normals. I'm going to set it to 90 degrees, and that also affects what direction the submarine is pointing in as well. On the submarine, I'm adding a path follow script. I'm changing the end path instruction to stop and the speed to 1. And I just need a slow movement script so the submarine can move slow enough for the player to be able to see what's happening and take action and move the objects around it. This first box collider is going to be the trigger. So later you're going to see me add it as an is trigger. And what we want to do is whenever the in the visual scripting, whenever the submarine goes through like a rock or something like that, it triggers the explosion. So this box collider is going to be used for the particle explosion, and we want a capsule collider for the actual physics collision. I added a second box, but I think actually a capsule is a better shape to use, seeing as the submarine's got a similar sort of shape as well. So when you're editing this capsule, it usually just comes in as a ball. So what you want to do is just click on the edit tool, and you want to change the direction. So what I want to do is just get it to look like a capsule first, and then change the direction on the y-axis. First I'm going to just tweak the radius and change it to the z-axis, and I'm just going to use the handles of those little vertices that you can see on the capsule collider, and just scale it and position it to be a similar size as the submarine that we've got. Cool, so I'm just going to set my box collider to trigger, and I'm going to also make it a little bigger than the submarine, so it triggers the explosion first, and then once the submarine hits the objects or collides with the objects, then it explodes. So see, I've just set the box collider to trigger. The next thing I want to do is add a explosion. Also, you want to make what I'm doing right now is making sure all of the enemy objects are tagged as enemy. And this would help with the detection of the explosion to know if it collides with something that's an enemy, then it would set the explosion. Particle effects. So now I'm going to go for the visual script and start doing some of the logic for the explosion effects. So this one's going to be not the explosion effect, sorry, this is going to be the logic for the death logic. So basically, when it collides with an object, it's very simple logic. When it collides with an object, it destroys. So let's get rid of on start. I'm going to maximize the screen so you guys can see it clearer, and I'm going to just do on collision. We don't even really need the on update, we just need on collision, and we need game object. Once it gets hit, it destroys self. So game object destroys self node, and also you want to just make sure it's this actual object. So we just drag out another node and just type in this, so it's destroying this object. Okay, so that's the main logic for the destruction of the ship. So the next thing I want to do is I want to create a explosion effect. So I was deciding whether or not I wanted to add the explosion effect to the submarine, or if I wanted to have it separate. We're adding another script, and this one's going to be for the explosion effect to actually play once the trigger is hit, or once there's an object inside the trigger. So I'm just going to call this one play explosion. So this one's going to be a on trigger enter play particle effect. Or play particle system. So on trigger enter is the first bit, and then we're just going to forward that to, and then search for if collides with a specific game object. So we're going to compare the tag. Remember, I set those tags earlier to enemy, so I just want to type in next to the tag space enemy as well. So if it collides with that enemy tag, then it will play the particle effect of the explosion. So it's two very simple logic to get this the whole def logic working. And now I'm just deciding how I'm going to actually connect that particle system logic to the submarine. So as you can see, I've just put in tag the enemy tag. Now I just want to create this particle system effect. And I'm going to call this one explosion. So the duration is going to be just 2 seconds. I'm going to start speed to be 20. We want the lifetime to be, let's say 2. I'm going to give it a gravity modifier of 1. We want this to have a large rate over time. And then we also want to have this happen in bursts. So we just want it like 1 burst. We want to change the shape of this emission to a sphere. And there you go, we've got already an explosive look to it. The next thing we want to do is change the radius. So I'm going to change that to 0.5. And I want the color over lifetime. I want it to look like fire, or some sort of like explosive element. So yeah, I guess like flames or sparks or anything like that. So we're going to change it to orange color, and we're going to also make the alpha disappear over time. We want also the size over lifetime to just go from +1 to 0. Almost like a firework sort of explosion. And right now I just want to play around with the material and see which material works best with this explosion, which is most visible. And that should be taking us to the end of the explosion effect. So in the end I decided to go with the fault particle explosion. I'm going to parent the explosion to the submarine, and I'm going to quickly try and see. And what you're going to notice is that you can't actually add the explosion in your logic if you've parented it. So what I decided to do instead was just add a particle system directly onto the submarine and copy that explosion component values straight onto that particle system that's now been added to the submarine. I'm also going to delete the original particle system as well. Still can't see the particle system, so I'm going to try and drag that straight into the logic. Then you can just do play particle system. So it's coming up as this, so I'm going to trust that it's just going to play the particle system that is already added onto the submarine. Let's give it a go. So let's just try and chuck one of the boulders straight into the submarine and see if it explodes. There you go, explodes, and the ship disappears. Now we can tweak this and work on how long it takes this ship to disappear in between the explosion and the collision. And you can just tweak that by using the box collider or anything like that. But yeah, we've pretty much got a successful explosion and death sequence for our submarine.